In recent years, Dungeons & Dragons has become increasingly popular, due in part to Netflix's Stranger Things as well as the extreme success of Geek and Sundry's Critical Role. This rise in popularity has led to many fresh players and game masters alike embracing the rules of the game and attempting it for themselves for the very first time. The goal of this series is simple: to provide an in-depth analysis of the many creatures and monsters that play a prominent role in any group's enjoyment of the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. From the devastating ancient red dragon to the flimsy flumph, every week we will be granting insight into these phenomenal creatures, how to prepare for them, and tips and tricks for running them in your campaign. So, without any further ado, let's start this week's video. After being hired to find a rare gem that has been lost within the Cragspire Cavern, a young, inexperienced group of adventurers fought their way through goblins, skeletons, and other common threats to reach the resting place of the gem. As the four cautiously approach the bright red ruby at the center of the room, the half-elven ranger Ametha notices that there are many half-built or broken statues throughout the interior of the room, each carved in exquisite detail, down to the tiniest of eyelashes. Feeling no immediate danger, Torek, the human fighter, rushes to the ruby, failing to notice a faint hissing and clicking sound from above. As he reaches out to grab the ruby, he feels a heavy presence drop from the ceiling, and as he turns to face this new foe, he inadvertently catches the beast's eyes. His limbs begin to feel extraordinarily heavy, and he watches as his companions face off against this lizard-like foe, each averting their eyes from its scary visage. He watches as his childhood friend, Yiva, the dragonborn sorceress, launches an icy blast from her mouth, Ametha swinging blindly with her short sword, and the dwarven cleric Bordel rushing for the stone that they had been contracted for, grabbing it from the pedestal. He watches as Ametha catches a lucky swing, lopping off the head of the beast, before his vision goes dark and he turns cold. The beast that the young group faced is known as a Basilisk, a lizard-like monstrosity best known for turning their victims to stone to feast on them at a later date. Basilisks are extremely adaptable monsters that can be found around the world in a variety of different ecosystems depending on the whim of the dungeon master. The most common location for these creatures is in caves or underground systems, where the lack of humidity is beneficial to the monster. Basilisks are also easily trained if raised from birth, so potential thieves beware, as your merc's guard dog may be less dog and more reptilian in nature. The Basilisk's petrification effect is incredibly difficult to overcome, as it requires either a high-level spell in either Greater Restoration, a 5th level spell, or Flesh to Stone, a 6th level spell, or an incredibly expensive alchemic oil created from the gullet and fluids of a slain basilisk. The Basilisk can be used in a number of different ways based on its relatively low stats and low challenge rating. A Basilisk has a CR of 3, making it one of the higher difficulty monsters a party can face at the lower levels. Basilisks work well as a dungeon boss between the 1st and 4th levels, as low-level characters will not have the required spells to overcome the petrifying stare. With a decent HP pool of 8d8 plus 16, or 52 on average, the Basilisk has enough health to be a challenge, but not enough to completely tank everything you send at it. A DC 12 on the Constitution saving throw for the petrification is brutal at low levels, as many non-martial characters will have a low save at this stage of the game. Outside of their stare, the Basilisk can only take a single bite attack per round, at 2d6 plus 3 piercing damage, as well as 2d6 poison damage. Poison damage early is a killer, as it's the most common damage type in the game, and characters will not have access to armor or major potions that reduce this effect. The Basilisk has 2 fairly decent stats in Strength 16 and Constitution 15, while only having single digit for the rest of its stats. If you do choose to use this creature as a low-level boss, try to have at least one local store or business carry the alchemic oils, as it's always rough to lose a character so early on in the game. Make the item more expensive for the characters to purchase, as the monster manual does clarify that this is a difficult item to create, but not enough to cripple the party financially. At higher levels, Basilisks provide good low-level minions to higher-level monsters. Their stare can cripple any party significantly should they fail the Constitution save, and during those fights, even losing one individual can have serious repercussions, especially if they play a singular role within the party. Clerics run away as fast as your shiny metal ass will allow. Strategy is fun, right guys? I know a lot of players like to run into a fight without properly thinking things through though, but strategy is a key part to keeping yourself alive in Dungeons & Dragons. The primary goal should be to avoid eye contact with the creature, despite getting disadvantage on attack rolls. Using a mirror against a creature may be a good tactic depending on the dungeon master, as they may rule that a basilisk is not immune to its own stare, similar to the myth of Perseus and Medusa. Outside of combating the stare, players should take note of the low speed that basilisks have. At 20 feet per round, a basilisk is slower than the majority of creatures in the game, so using speed and distance against it can be crucial to avoid a TPK. Melee characters should attempt the hit and run tactic, while spellcasters and range attackers should stay outside of the 20-foot range, and pepper it with long-range spells. The Basilisk does not have any resistances or immunities, so players do not need to worry about spell selection when combating this monstrosity. And there you have it, ladies and gents, the Basilisks. Let us know your Basilisk stories down below, and what creatures you would want us to talk about in the future. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be releasing more weekly content, and may the gods of fate bless your dice. Have a good day.